Welcome into today's movie review. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be talking about How to Make a Killing, written and directed by John Patton Ford, whose previous works include Emily the Criminal, which starred Aubry Plaza, along with a short film back in 2010 called Patrol. From reading the description on Patrol, there is a lot of similarities between the projects John Patton Ford picks, as they're always about somebody entering a world that they don't really come from or belong to, but they strive to get there for reasons of their own. Starring Glen Powell as Becket, Bedfellow, Margaret Qualley as Julia, Jessa Henwick as Ruth, and Ed Harris as Whitelaw Redfellow, the patriarch of the Redfellow family. How to Make a Killing is about Becket Redfellow, an heir to the Redfellow estate that his disowned mother reminds him about throughout his life. On her deathbed, she has Becket promise to never give up trying to get what is rightfully his or what he deserves. We follow Becket as you see him grow with his mother, who's not wealthy but wants to provide that life that she had, teaching him and having him learn piano, archery, and other type of activities that are aligned with more of a higher class citizen, I guess, that allows him to kind of connect to that Redfellow foundation of how she grew up. Once an adult, Becket is reminded of the promise he made to his mother after running into Julia at his work. Julia was a long-lost friend he hasn't seen in years. They were middle school crushes, and he decides to take out the 7 Redfellows in a way to be the sole inheritor of the estate, aided by the skills his mother helped him hone as a child. This all kind of brought to about by a line that Julia says while she happens to be at the suit store that he works at, and it's in the trailer. This was a pretty fun movie. With maybe a few plot holes, especially in regards to the relationship between Becket and Julia. There may have been more to the script or even filmed in the movie that were possibly cut, because I feel some of her motivations, they're clear, but they don't really kind of link back to their relationship, because it seems as though they grew apart over a period of 10 to 15 years, and as soon as she sees him, does she come up with this plan that she kind of enacts throughout the film. It's hard to say. Maybe they just wanted her to be a terrible person, just as in general. You don't really learn a lot about her when she's younger, outside of their kind of crush relationship as middle schoolers or early high schoolers. Their goal is probably just to make her an evil person, kind of a counter to what Becket is, who's kind of doing stuff out of necessity, he thinks, and trying to keep the promise to his mother. The acting here is good, even though Glen Powell is basically the same type of character he usually plays. Charming, charismatic, with kind of a hint of sadness and anger in a few different facial expressions that he uses. He also kind of reminds me a little bit of the character he played in the Netflix movie Hitman. There's a lot of similarities to how the two characters kind of act, and it's possible. That's just Glen Powell. That's what he does. Jessica Henwick is great as a love interest, showing Becket a side of life that isn't about money and the necessity to get more and more of abundance that he is after. There's a pretty great cameo by Topher Grace. Was probably one of the funniest scenes in the movie when Becket is kind of going after this new cousin that he has. Visually, the movie is, it's adequately shot. I think the biggest thing with this movie, it's very gray, and that seems to be typical of a lot of movies these days. Everything just looks gray, from movies like Shelter to Greenland. No shortage of gray looking movies over the last year or so. It's something I've been seeing a lot on YouTube commentary videos, just general in life, like where did all the color go? As someone who wears black and grays all the time, that's kind of a contradictory statement, but overall the movie looked fine. It was adequate. Just very gray. There are a couple flashback scenes with Ed Harris's character are more of a silhouetted look with him sitting in a chair, and they use some kind of a de-aging effects in this scene, even though you don't really see his eyes, his mouth, maybe a little outline of him. You could tell they were using some kind of de-aging CGI, and it looked a little bit uncanny and kind of took me out of those scenes when they showed up. Luckily, there's only 2 or 3 of them, I recall, and it was primarily his forehead, and it just kind of gave you that there was something off vibe, which I found interesting for especially a scene like that, where it's like they could have just did it fully silhouetted and not even bother with the de-aging and just have his voice going. There's a lot of commentary on, how wealth corrupts, It's pretty clearly on display throughout the film. As you see Beckett embrace more of life's abundance, there's some stuff as he's killing his relatives, he's slowly moving up in life as he meets other relatives that kind of feel guilty about the way the family treated his mother and him. And even with Ruth being there as a counter, he still goes through with all these plans because he knows he'll get to the end at some point. Eventually, he does make a decision that throws everything out the window and kind of ruins a lot of his relationships. But overall, it was a pretty fun movie. Kind of a lighthearted, dark comedy, I guess it would be. Not overtly sinister in any way. A fun yet flawed movie. To Make a Killing is definitely worth a watch for anyone looking for something that's kind of a dark comedy, but without overtly being dark and sinister. 3 stars.